Hurricane Melissa,
Yeah.
have you been following that? The
Well, I
Jamaican
have
government
because
is
I've
asking
never
for
seen
help.
numbers like that. I saw a little while ago 195 mile an hour wind. I've never seen that before. I've never seen, I guess it can get that high, but I've never seen it. And it's literally just, knocking down everything in front of it. It's a stage 5, I guess. And you don't see stage 5. You don't see 5s very often. You see 4s and 3s, but this is a 5 early on, meaning it gets worse. So it's done a tremendous job. You mean on Jamaica?
Is the United States going to?
Well, we have to.
Jamaica
On a
be
humanitarian basis, we have to. So we're watching it closely and we're prepared to move. But it's doing tremendous damage. It's, as we speak, it's right there right now.
Administration of food stamps, SNAP benefits. Is your administration
Well, we're
looking
going to
at?
get it done. The Democrats have.
Could Jamaicans get legal status in America because of Hurricane Melissa? Hurricane Melissa didn't just destroy homes, it may decide the fate of thousands of Jamaicans living in the United States. As the storm ripped through the island, flattening communities and wiping out billions of dollars in infrastructure, a new question began to rise in Washington. Should Jamaicans in America be granted temporary protected status, TPS? It's a legal status that could change people's lives overnight, offering work permits, protection from deportation, and a chance to breathe during one of Jamaica's darkest moments. But this possibility is trapped inside a political storm of its own. Congress members are demanding it, immigration advocates are pleading for it, and the Jamaican diaspora in America is quietly watching every headline. Meanwhile, the White House has stayed silent, leaving millions to wonder whether this humanitarian crisis will open a door or slam it shut. What happens next could define U.S.-Jamaica relations for the next decade. So today, we're exploring the most important question no one is answering clearly. What if Jamaica gets TPS? What if it doesn't? And what does this mean for Jamaicans living abroad? This is the scenario that could shift thousands from fear to freedom. What if Jamaica gets TPS? If Jamaica is granted TPS, it would instantly transform the legal status of thousands of Jamaicans who are currently undocumented or overstaying visas in the U.S. overnight. People who've been living in the shadows would gain work authorization, social security access, and legal protection from deportation. They could finally get jobs above the table, travel internally without fear, and build stability as Jamaica rebuilds from Melissa's destruction. Families who feared immigration raids would have temporary peace. Children born in the U.S. to Jamaican parents, some undocumented, would no longer live in households terrified of sudden separation. TPS doesn't create a path to citizenship, but it creates breathing space. For many Jamaicans, that alone would be life-changing. In some countries, TPS has lasted 10 to 20 years, effectively giving people decades of stability. Economically, TPS could increase remittances flowing back to Jamaica, a crucial lifeline after the hurricane. With legal work authorization, Jamaicans could earn more and send more money home, helping relatives rebuild homes, farms, and businesses. In a strange twist, a disaster that devastated the island could actually strengthen the financial support network between America and Jamaica. What if Jamaica doesn't get TPS? But the opposite scenario is far more frightening and far more realistic. If America refuses to grant TPS, thousands of Jamaicans will remain vulnerable to deportation, just as Jamaica faces one of the biggest humanitarian crises in its history. Without TPS, overstayers and undocumented Jamaicans would be treated the same as before, at risk, unprotected, and invisible. This could create a wave of fear in diaspora communities across Florida, New York, New Jersey, and Georgia. Many Jamaicans currently dealing with expiring visas, lost jobs, and temporary statuses could find themselves trapped, unable to stay legally, but unable to return to a devastated island. Deportations would resume under normal policy, even though Jamaica itself cannot absorb a sudden influx of returnees while struggling to rebuild basic services. Back home, this could pressure the Jamaican government even more. Every deportee returned to Jamaica in this moment would require housing, assistance, and reintegration, resources Jamaica simply does not have post-Melissa. Without TPS, the human fallout of Hurricane Melissa spreads beyond the island, hitting the diaspora just as hard. Scenario A. Mass legalization. In the best-case scenario, the U.S. grants TPS swiftly and decisively. This would open the door for tens of thousands of Jamaicans to apply. Immigration lawyers estimate that anywhere from 30,000 to 50,000 Jamaicans could qualify, depending on the date set by DHS. With work authorization, many would transition into stable employment, secure housing, and better family conditions. This would also create a second wave of benefits. Legal workers pay taxes, contribute to local economies, and reduce reliance on risky underground jobs. It's not just a humanitarian win, it's an economic boost. Caribbean American communities would flourish, and U.S.-Jamaica relations would strengthen as Washington positions itself as a partner in Jamaica's recovery. But the most powerful effect would be psychological. A community long forced into fear and silence would stand upright. TPS becomes more than paperwork, it becomes dignity. It becomes a chance to rebuild both in America and back home. Scenario B: mass deportation pressure. The worst-case scenario is the one immigration advocates fear most. If the U.S. refuses TPS and instead increases deportations, as some analysts predict, thousands of Jamaicans could be forced back to an island already dealing with homelessness, food shortages, and destroyed infrastructure. This would overwhelm the Jamaican government and deepen the humanitarian crisis. For individuals, the consequences would be catastrophic. People who built lives in America for years would be sent to a country they barely recognize, with no home to return to. Families would be separated and remittances, Jamaica's biggest foreign exchange source, would drop sharply. This would directly slow down Jamaica's recovery from Melissa. Politically, the decision would send a clear message about America's priorities: security over compassion. It could create diplomatic tension between Kingston and Washington at a time when Jamaica desperately needs support. For the diaspora, it would be a brutal reminder that not everyone gets a chance at safety during a crisis. Partial protection. A more complicated scenario is possible. The U.S. government grants TPS, but with very strict cutoff dates or limited duration. This means only a small percentage of Jamaicans would qualify, mainly those already in the U.S. before a specific date tied to Hurricane Melissa. Others who arrived later, or who cannot prove their presence, would remain unprotected. In this scenario, some families gain legal stability, while others remain in limbo. Mixed-status households would continue living under fear, with one parent protected and another at risk of removal. It's a partial win, but still deeply uneven. Some communities, especially in Florida, would experience a divide between those who qualify and those who don't. Economically, this scenario offers limited benefits. Remittance flow would increase slightly, but not dramatically. For Jamaica, it still leaves thousands vulnerable and unable to support family back home. This halfway approach may please Washington politically, but it does little to address the full scale of the crisis. Which scenario is most likely? Right now, the pressure on the U.S. government is growing. Over 40 members of Congress have already called for TPS for Jamaica. Advocacy groups are pushing hard. The legal criteria are clearly met. Jamaica suffered a major environmental disaster, making safe return temporarily impossible. On paper, Jamaica qualifies. But politically, the decision is harder. TPS is controversial in U.S. immigration politics, especially under Trump. While it could happen, analysts believe the most likely outcome is Scenario C, partial protection, a limited TPS designation that helps some but not all Jamaicans in the U.S. Immigration policy will shape how fast money and help flow back to the island. Jamaica's recovery is no longer just a local issue, it's global. And for both countries, the stakes could not be higher. Hurricane Melissa destroyed buildings, but the political aftershocks may reshape lives for years. The question now is simple: will America choose compassion or calculation?